Hey, welcome to Bear Mountain today. Today's activity is planting anemones. So, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it different than we have in the past? Stay tuned. Okay, one of the things that we've done in the past is we use our crate system differently than other people do. Our crate system is more semi-permanent, meaning what we're doing is we don't change out the soil every year. We do amend it with compost, and this year we're using cottonseed meal, which is kind of a slow release organic fertilizer, and azomite for some minerals. And then we're going to top dress like we do every year with our compost. We plant into that. What we do is we put 20 corms in a crate, roughly 20, 21, depending on how it goes, and that's what we do. In the end of the season, when the plants die back in May, June, we dig them out the best we can anyway. And in some cases there are a few leftover stragglers, like where we're here now in mid-October, and we've had some that have volunteered to come up. So I guess that still means the soil's good, so that's good. This year, though, we're going to be a little different. We're still going to plant the same way, still treat the crates the same way, but we've been doing something different with the corms itself. And we'll show this as we go through this, but we treated them the same way we did the ranunculus. We used a worm tea to aerate them as we hydrated them. We hydrate our corms for about 12 hours in a bubbler system with that tea. Then, before we plant, we treat, this is our first time doing this, we treat the corms with a solution, a Korean natural farming solution that they call maintenance solution or seed enhancement type thing, which basically you're adding a biostimulant to the corm itself. We use fermented plant juice, which has lots of enzymes and other types of things that help the plants, auxins and growth hormones and things like that. We're using a comfrey-based fermented plant juice, or FPJ, with some brown rice vinegar to just basically kind of help it out a little bit. And then the last thing that's added to that solution is Oriental Herbal Nutrient, which is used to basically help it, I guess the way to say it would be, it's kind of an inoculant to help keep out bad pathogens from getting started on it. Once we plant, the last thing we'll do after we water them in is we will apply the worm tea to them and let them sit for 2 weeks. Also, too, different this year, we did not pre-sprout. So all we've done is hydrated them up, treated them with a KNF solution, and now we're going to plant. So we've eliminated that step totally, and we're going to see how this rolls. What you're looking at right here is, this is after sitting in the KNF solution for about 45 minutes. Now, the reason why the water in here looks murky is because there's still some silt and stuff that were left on the corms. The actual solution itself is clear. It's just mixed in with a gallon of water. And we'll put down in the show description notes how you make this seed solution. And there's also other good videos out there on the internet about Korean natural farming and how to do that kind of stuff too. So this is the first group. These are the caramel whites, and they're hydrated and they're ready to go. So let's get started. Okay, we're using azomite, which is a ground up rock dust from a deposit that is, I guess if you want to say it's glacial in a sense, but it's probably older than that. It comes out of Utah, and in the United States it's pretty much available, and it's got a lot of micronutrients in it. That's ground pretty fine, that any biology that's in these crates that we introduce with our worm teas and things like that will help in the release of this, especially if we can get some fungal compost teas on things as we grow. It'll help tremendously for supplying all kinds of micronutrients. The other thing we apply, which is readily available here in the the Pacific Northwest, is cottonseed meal. Now, we don't raise cotton here, but California is a huge cotton growing area, particularly down there, Bakersfield, that area down there. And what this is this is the remnants of after they've taken the seeds and they've pressed them for oil. They grind them up and then they bag them and they sell them. Some people use them for supplements to animal feed. We're using it for a low balanced, it's a low NPK type slow release. As it rots, it'll release these, the minerals, the fertility to plant available forms. So we've used that this year. Last year we made a mistake. We didn't use the cottonseed meal. We used fish meal. Way too high on the nitrogen and maybe even on the phosphorus end of things for those plants, and that was a mistake. We ended up planting earlier too because we were trying to see if we could push the actual harvest up. And what we ended up with was great looking plants in October and November. They were very green, very healthy, too green, too healthy. They were out of balance. And what we found happening, even in the dead of winter, is we ended up with an aphid infestation. So we're going to go with a much lower fertility level this year, using KNF solutions to add fertility when we need to. If we need to add some water-soluble calcium or some calcium phosphate, we'll do that just to kind of boost them along. If we need to add any kind of nitrogen in addition to this, we'll add it through fish hydroslate, or that's basically it. And then also too, we're going to hit these guys with worm compost tea probably at least 3 times before they start blooming. We're going to do it once at planting, again in several weeks after they're up, and then probably several weeks after that. We don't want to get too much fertility going in here in the lowest light levels in November and December, but we do want to have enough that the plants develop good, strong root systems and then begin their blooming process in January. That's our target. If we can start them blooming in January, then we'll be good for Valentine's Day. That's always the key. We just want to hit Valentine's Day. So we're spreading this stuff out. We'll just lightly kind of work it in the first inch or two, because anemones, when we plant, they are really shallow planted. We just basically are pushing them in, and then we'll come and do it, maybe a quarter to a half-inch dusting of compost over the top of these crates, and then water it in real well with the worm tea, and we'll wait for germination. So let's get this stuff spread out and choodled in, and then we'll start the planting process. Well, we're starting the planting. We got all of the minerals and cottonseed meal kind of worked into the first couple inches, and we put the pre-soaked and treated KNF treated corms. We're ready to stick these guys in. We plant them 21 in a crate, so 3 rows is 7. The rows are probably 3 inches apart, roughly, ish. A couple inches from the side, and then a couple inches in between each plant.
How deep?
They actually go very close to the surface. I've just laid these out so you can see them here, but the actual planting, we'll just push them in and then cover them with just about that much soil. Very light.
How do you know up from down?
Oh, well, in that case, years of experience. Well, let's give you an example. This is an easy one. Okay, that's the top.
Okay.
Here's the top. You can see that. Here's the bottom pointed. Makes a whole lot of sense, right? So we just stick that in the ground. Now let's find a confusing hard one. And how do you tell the difference on that? Here's an interesting one. And this is the bottom, the pointed end. This is the growth tip. If you look at them long enough, you kind of get used to, what the tops are and what they're not. Sometimes you find ones that have been kind of stained with the soil that they were grown in, so they're maybe a little harder to find the tip, the top. In some cases, they're just really obvious, Like here's one that's not so obvious. Is that the top or is that the top? This is the top because you can see, if you look at it close enough, you can see that there's some dead like stem material still left on it. So that's the top. And then you just, go through. What we do first is we line them up to make sure we got them kind of all evenly spaced. And then kind of after we've got them all lined up, we'll come back through, poke them down. This dirt is so soft, you can stick your finger down pretty far, pretty fast. So it's just a matter of kind of like pushing them down, kind of spreading a little bit over the top. We originally thought when I was going to plant in here that I'd come back through and top it off with some compost. I'm not really sure that I'm going to. I may just put a dusting, maybe a 1/4 inch on top. But I'm really thinking there's a lot of organic material still left in here, and with putting the minerals and the cottonseed in, I'm probably not going to do anything. And then we'll just keep following up with like the worm teas and the KNF solutions, and I think that'll be probably enough fertility for these guys. They don't need a super lot of fertility, and if there's enough organic material in here, that's pretty good as a buffer to hold any kind of minerals and things from leaching out too much, so that they're plant available. We do irrigate once the plants are up. We'll start irrigating when the looks like the crates are a little bit dry. We'll use the drip irrigation. Try not to water overhead during the winter time, but we will hand water these in so we know that they're good and soaked, and that is with the worm tea as well. So we'll put the worm tea down, then we'll soak them. So let's get them all laid out, and then we'll push them in. Well, we got the first group of 500 laid out, 21 in a crate, and now we're going to be actually getting them planted in. But you may notice something a little different on the edge, inside and the outside of each crate. What we've done, or going to do, is this is an experiment. We are going to grow 1 clove of garlic in each crate. Not because we love garlic, but because...
We do.
Well, we do love garlic. But, oh, I've got a cat who's about to help me out. What are you doing? I think it's time for you. Good. You've gained. All right, sorry for the interruption. Our friendly cat had to inspect what we were doing. So what we were doing is we're planting the garlic to help repel aphids and maybe a few other pests. We'll see. That actually, this is a pretty small type of garlic. It's not going to be huge. It's not a hard neck. It's a soft neck type. And so mostly it's just going to be in the vegetative state when the anemones are growing through to the point where they're blooming. It shouldn't theoretically be too much of a hassle. And so we'll see if that helps with insect pressure. It's an experiment.
That's what we do.
What's the worst that could happen?
We'd have garlic, stinky.
Stinky anemones that smell like garlic. But
probably not.
Probably not. So the next thing we're doing here is we're going to press these guys in so that the anemone, corms, and the garlic are planted below the surface. Garlic doesn't have to be super deep either. We just have to take the clove and just make sure we get it pushed in, and there's some dirt covering it, and that's about it. So then it's just a matter of pushing these guys down so they get, maybe a 1/4, not much more than a 1/2 inch for certain, dirt over the top. It's not really a very time-consuming thing. We can actually use 2 hands and do it pretty quick because this soil is so loose that it's just not a big deal. And that is it. We plant the crate, we do each one of them like that, and then we are going to give it a worm tea soaking, and then a bit more of water on top of that, or maybe the other way around. I don't want the worm casting tea to run out. I do want it to kind of stay in the crate itself. So we'll probably do an initial pretty good soak with regular water, and then come and spray the worm tea on it and let the whole thing just kind of percolate down. Well, let's get the last part of this done and move on. Okay. I say okay a lot. I mean it. It's okay. We've got the first round planted. Pretty much takes care of this whole segment right here. It's about 55 crates. We've got another at least similar amount, maybe 70, 80 crates left. Maybe, yeah, it's probably closer to 70 crates left to plant on anemones. That'll go on this side over here as soon as we get this worked up in the next couple of days. So this is week 43, so by the end of week 43 all the anemones will be in. Since we didn't pre-sprout, we're anticipating it's probably going to take 2 weeks for them to, start showing some nice green leaves. And it took the ranunculus 11 or 12 days
12.
to actually show
13.
up. And no, that
12.
12 days. 12 days to show up and look real good. So I would think the anemones aren't going to be much different. So I'm going to go through and wet this down pretty good. And then I'm going to get my worm tea, dilute that on a 1-to-1 basis. So I've got about 4 gallons of tea. And so I'll make about 8 gallons of a drench. And that will take care of these crates. I'll just apply it using a backpack sprayer. And then we'll be done. We'll just monitor it, make sure it doesn't, start going on the dry side. It shouldn't this time of year. And it shouldn't be too wet. We're going to leave the hoop house sides down so we build as much heat in here as possible, but we're going to keep the ends open so we got good airflow going through. And I think everything should work out pretty good. Garlic's in. I think we're good. Unless you can think of anything.
Nope, just grow.
Just grow. Okay. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching today. This is just something we do every fall, and it's a little bit different. We're always trying to, find maybe some way that takes out some steps or makes things a little more healthy. And so we're experimenting this year, and we'll see if it works. If you like what you see, please subscribe. Be sure to check out our other playlists. We have some attached to the end of this video, plus you can find them on our YouTube channel.
Lots of anemone videos.
We have a whole playlist on anemones, kind of show you the evolution of how we've been doing it over the last few years. So that'd be kind of cool to watch them all.
So what year is this for us on anemones?
I think we've been doing these since at least 2006. So,
jeez.
Yeah.
Long time. We like them though.
Yep, and they're real popular with folks. So I guess there isn't anything more to say except have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.